Lately, I've had quite a lot of people tell me that there's so many overwhelming things in RuneScape 3 and that it took them a long time to get back into the game when they returned. So of course, I do what I do best, and I put a post on my community section on YouTube, who would have guessed, asking you guys what was the most overwhelming things for you to learn in RuneScape 3. So, you guys have commented on this post and you have told me what was the most overwhelming things for you, and we're going to go through those, read what you maybe gave suggestions for, but if you didn't, then I will try and give some more feedback as well, and hopefully any newer players, any returning players can look at this and maybe get some extra information, and also realize that you're kind of not alone. This happens to probably most people. Anyway, if you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and let's go. Okay, so the first comment, it comes from It's Me You See. You say, the hardest thing for me was the Invention learning curve. Like, I understood attach this thing to gear, level it up, and dismantle it, but learning what to level up for perks and what true trash for comps took a long time to master than some other skills in RuneScape. It definitely holds the title of master skill because it's super confusing when you start. As a returning player now, there's ancient Invention, which was an entirely new piece of the puzzle to learn. This is very true. Invention for me is absolutely probably one of the most confusing skills, if not the most confusing skill in the game. I still don't fully understand it, in all honesty. I would never make an Invention guide personally, because one, I would absolutely have to just copy the wiki and tell you what it says there, because I don't understand anything other than that myself. And then of course you got to look into this and understand that there is so many different perks and stuff as well. There is, of course, is RuneScape going to be best in slot perks that you can focus on, which makes it a bit easier. So you can actually find a optimal PVM perk, sort of like guide or whatever. I'll link it in the description. It's from the wiki. The optimal PVM perks are on there, and it'll tell you what you should be getting for each weapon. That's one easy way to simple it down, because you can just get those perks, figure out how to get them exactly, and just go for it. You don't have to understand why. You don't have to do everything else. That's how I do it, basically, and I just look at how to get this perk, what I should be putting on that weapon, and then just go ahead and do it. That's pretty much what I do. But in saying that, Invention was absolutely one of the more common things mentioned in here. Invention's a difficult skill to get used to, and there is a lot of information about it. So personally, what I did is level my Invention all the way to 120, and then I got perks. That's not the best thing to do. You want to be getting the perks when you can, and getting some budget perks early on, and then when you get 120, work on your best in slot perks. But don't try and get your best in slot too early, because if you try and get them before 120, you have a less chance on a lot of them, and you're just going to end up spending a lot of money. Invention's expensive, so I would suggest getting your budget perks earlier on, and then when you do reach 120, then go for your best in slot perks. The next comment says, honestly, the most difficult thing to learn is figuring out what keybinds are most comfortable for you. And this has 11 likes, so it's definitely something that people are struggling with. Keybinds in RuneScape 3, you have a lot. You have so many keybinds that you need, and honestly, it can be overwhelming as hell. I can totally understand why this is in here. And of course, when you ask a streamer, or you ask like a YouTuber, like people ask me in stream all the time, say, how do I get my keybinds to be comfortable? Like what keybinds should I be using? And I will likely say you just need to keybind what's comfortable for you. And that's the confusing bit, right? There's no real thing in there. There's no specific way to do it. The best way to do it is to honestly find a place where you rest your hand and then work from there. I would go with your basics on your most comfortable sort of like where your fingers lay. And then from there on, I would add thresholds around that, and I would build outwards from that sort of section. So if you rest your hand on Q, W, E, and R, or 1, 2, 3, and 4, whichever one you go with, put your basics on those, and then move your way up from there. Add thresholds to maybe the T, G, V, stuff like that, and then add your prayers and stuff around nearby. There's so many things you need. You need all your abilities, which is basics, thresholds, ultimates, and then you've got things like your defensives, and you've got like your constitution abilities, other things like sigils and stuff like that, and then you've also got things like your weapon switches, and then you've got your prayers, then you've got your food, then you've got your potions. There's so many different things to actually keybind. So this absolutely is overwhelming, and honestly, it's not something that you're just struggling with yourself. And then when you start getting to full manual as well, it does get difficult. So what I would suggest you do is add things on as you need them as well. What I mean by this is, don't just decide you're going full manual and then keybind every living thing you can think of. Keybind what you need right now, which is probably your basics and your ultimates and your thresholds, and then a few switches here and there. And then as you increase the amount of stuff you're using, just add them on one at a time. So add your vuln bombs when you use them. And then if you need to keybind like your adrenaline potion, then add that then. Don't just add everything straight away. Add it at the time, and add it in a place that you are going to remember it in your head. So for example, my defensives are lined up similar to what the keys are. My barricade is on Alt B. I use Alt for all of the defensive abilities. Alt B is for Barricade, Alt D is for Devotion, Alt R is for Reflect. So I've got it in my head that R is Reflect, D is Devotion, and B is Barricade. And I try and do that as much as I can. Makes it easier to remember it, and honestly, it's just, there's so many things to remember. You want to be doing these things as much as you can to make it easier on yourself. Next comment says, PVMing is probably the hardest thing to learn. You can have best in slot gear and still be at the game. There are so many things to think about when killing a boss. What abilities should I use in which order? Potions, prayers, right spells, or bolts, etc. Glacier is such a good boss to learn how to deal with mechanics of prayer flicking. It made me so much better at PVMing. There's actually some good stuff in here. You've given the problem. You've also given a solution to the problem as well. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Dark Magics. You absolute legend. Okay, so PVMing in general, just as a general thing, yes, it is so freaking difficult because it takes on pretty much every other issue in the game as well. You have all your keybinds to do. You have to understand how to do all the defense abilities, all of your normal abilities. You have to know what every item does as well that you're going to be using. There is so much. So you need to take a step back a little bit and do what Dark Magic here is sort of suggested. Find somewhere in the game like the Arcglacier, which is a great place to start because you can turn mechanics on and off, and just work your way through it slowly. It is important for you guys to realize, though, that this is going to take a long time to do. Getting good at PVM takes a hell of a long time. You guys could go back to the beginning of my Preparing for God Wars 1 series if you need motivation. Go back, take a look, and just realize how bad I was at PVM. I'm not great now. I'm okay. I'm okay at PVM. There's still so much for me to learn. But go back to those first episodes and just look how bad I was. I was struggling just like many of you guys are right now. And it's not that you're bad. It's just that you're just getting started. That was where I was. I was just getting started. So I can't really say I was bad at PVM. I just wasn't good yet. So it does take time, it takes effort, but start off small, Glacier with one mechanic, 0 mechanics even. Do God Wars 1 first, do God Wars 2 after that. Don't just jump in and dive in and struggle. There's a lot of stuff to pick up. So start off at the basics and then slowly add them things in one at a time until you get them all together. The next comment says, hardest thing to learn was switch escape. Was very uncomfortable at first, so I avoided it for a very long time. Okay, there's a couple of solutions I have for this. Okay, the first one is just take switches with you when you are actually doing PVM, and if you don't use them, then don't use them. Don't take all the switches. You don't have to use flanking. I won't touch flanking at all. I just won't do it. It is what it is. But you can take things like your planted feet, which is highly recommended. And then other things like if you're magic, for example, you want to be swapping between a wand, an orb, and a staff. You don't have to do that, but it is definitely helpful. So if you want to do it, take these things with you. Take your planted feet switch with you, whether you're going to use it or not. The reason being is eventually at a boss, you're going to get comfortable to a point where you will just chuck it on and you'll just use it. And you'll be like, oh, wait, that wasn't too bad. I'll try that again. And then you'll do it another time. And even if you don't do it one in 5 times, that's still one time that you're practicing it that you wouldn't have done in the first place. The second thing is I would recommend getting yourself a gaming mouse, an MMO mouse. Those are incredibly useful, and I will link down in the description with an Amazon link if you want to take a look at the one I use, and you can click on that. You can see which one it is, and honestly, there's 12 buttons on the side, but you need to keep in mind this isn't just 12 buttons. It is easily 36. You can use the Control, the Alt, and the Shift modifier as well, so it's actually more than 36 even, and you can have all of those keybounds. So every time you add another modifier, you're adding another 12 keybinds. And then there's also the sensitivity buttons that can be completely changed, and you can click the scroll button side to side as well and remap that, but don't use any macros. I'm going to give you guys a heads up right now. Don't macro anything. You can remap buttons, you can change them so it's a 1-for-1 still, so you can make your sensitivity buttons, you press the F key, but don't change anything to press more than one key at a time. That is against the rules. You can get banned, and it's just not worth doing. That being said, this is a great mouse to have. There is other options. There is cheaper options as well. There's more expensive options. But personally, I would not be able to use any sort of switches anywhere near as much as I do if I didn't have this mouse. I use it for so much, and it does make life so much easier. Next comment says, D&Ds and the amount of D&Ds and minigames and figuring out which are worth your time. Also, unlocking new abilities by doing minigames like Shattered Worlds. It's a bit unintuitive having skills locked behind minigames you're not even aware exist. So this is kind of true. There's so many minigames and dailies and distractions and stuff that it's just effort, and it's confusing, and I don't even know all of them. I'm not gonna lie. This is something that confuses me still. I've done most of the stuff that I need to. For example, I've already done my Shattered Worlds. I've got my Bladed Dive. I've got anything I need from there. But there's other things in the game still that I just haven't really done or looked at because there's just so much stuff. And again, the big point of like not knowing what is worth actually getting, like what's worth your time and stuff, is definitely a problem, and I completely understand. What I would suggest you do with this is, one, look up the minigame or the reward that you're looking for on the RuneScape wiki. It will tell you which minigame it is if it's the reward you're searching, or it'll tell you how to actually get to it or do it on the wiki if you put in the minigame. That being said as well, there will usually be something telling you that there's a friends chat that will help you and support you with that minigame. So for example, the Wilderness Warbands are incredibly useful for you to be able to get some bonus XP or some free XP and actually get through skills a lot quicker. If you put Wilderness Warbands in on the RuneScape wiki, it will tell you what friends chat you should join to be able to get involved in that and have people support you through it and make it a lot easier on yourself. If you try and solo some of the group events, it's very difficult, but if you do it in these friends chats that have been set up to help you out, then you should give them a shot, because trust me, it is absolutely worth it, and this will make your life much easier. As for knowing which ones you should actually go for in the first place, you can join my Discord in the description. There's a link. Join that, and if you have any questions, just ask in there, and I'm sure you'll get some response, whether it's from mods or other members. I'm sure you will. The next comment says, setting up the most practical interface in Keybinds is a huge pain for returning players. I've been watching most videos of different YouTubers and making notes of small improvements to apply to my own interfaces. RuneScape is definitely not the same click and stare game like it used to be. This is very true, and the actual interface I think is probably the most silly way it's set up when it starts the game. I feel like there's a lot of things that you need on your screen that aren't there to begin with, and it's just overwhelming as hell to go from what you have as default to then look at someone who's using YouTube or someone streaming on Twitch, for example, and then see what they've got and go, holy crap, what is that on my screen? What the hell is this? So I feel like there maybe needs to be an extended bit of the tutorial to talk you through interfaces and set up a normal interface. Not just give you one, but like show you how it's set up, make you drag stuff, make you bring stuff out, explain where everything is. I understand the tutorial can't be overly long, so you could even give them a couple of presets to choose from and then ask them if they want to build that thing. And if they don't, then it just gives it to them and it skips through it for them. So I feel like this could be something that could be useful. I don't really have any other suggestions myself. It's something you're going to realize throughout the game that I could use that on my screen to drag it on. I could use this to drag it on. Again, this is a good idea. You've given a good solution here, to be fair. Watch other YouTubers, watch streamers and stuff, and ask what stuff's on the screen. If you're watching a stream, just ask them, and they'll tell you. They won't mind. Most people won't anyway. So ask stuff, they'll explain it to you, and then you can be like, okay, that's cool, I'll drag that on myself. But other than that, yes, the interface is ridiculously confusing. It is probably one of the most customizable interfaces in any game that I've seen, because it is all changeable, and it's good. At the same time, it's confusing as hell for new players. Okay, we're going to make this our last comment, and it says, for me, it was understanding the combat meta, if that makes sense. I played back when EOC was released, and the combat system was pretty basic compared to how it is now. Things like perks, adrenaline boosters, switches, supportive combat spells, god books, bombs or power bursts, etc. that didn't exist back then were very new concept to me when I started playing again a few months ago. I had to ease my way into it by introducing it all one by one as I learned and became familiar with the meta. This is very similar to like how I was saying with keybinds. Keybind things one by one as you get them, as you need them, and the same goes for this. Gabe is absolutely right here, and it's a great way to do it, is to bring the stuff with you still and then start using them as you need them. If you have the inventory space for it or whatever, like your bombs and your power bursts and all that sort of stuff, you don't have to feel like you need to use them straight away. Just build on it slowly. So things like vulnerability bombs, bring them along with you anyway, but then if you forget to use it in a fight, don't beat yourself up about it. Don't go, I really need to use these vulnerability bombs. Just wait. When you feel comfortable enough to use them, then just use them then. And then other stuff like switches, don't bother bringing them just yet. Get used to what you've got so far, and then when you're in a comfortable position, add one switch in. And then add another one in, and then add another one. And then eventually you can be like, okay, I can switch through 20 items now. I don't need food anymore, and we're good to go. That's what you'll get to eventually, but everybody has to start from somewhere, and starting from the basics and just having your armor on, having your weapons on, not doing any switches, not worrying about exactly like boosting your adrenaline and all that sort of stuff early on is fine. God Wars 1, God Wars 2 doesn't necessarily need you to do this to get through the content. It will be easier to get faster kills if you do that, but overall it's not required. So start using them there, add things in one at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. This is something where you're kind of overwhelming yourself when you automatically assume you need to use all these things. There's a lot of stuff, just stick with what you need, and then when you feel comfortable enough, then it's time to add one more thing. Alright, so there was about 54 comments on this post when I started recording this, which is absolutely crazy. A lot of them were kind of similar to each other, saying invention, saying switching, all that sort of stuff, but there is still quite a few more. So if you want a part 2 to this, let me know in the comments and I will do that. But I'm going to end this video here, as there was quite a lot of explaining on each one of them as well, and it is going to end up dragging if I don't. But I hope you do enjoy, and I hope it does give some value to some newer players or returning players. It's not going to add value to everybody. I completely understand that. It won't add it to everybody, but if it helps out even one person, then I'm happy. And I appreciate all you guys commenting and trying to help out other people too. Other than that, thank you channel members for your extra support. Your names will be on screen right now. You guys help out more than you probably realize. It's incredibly useful. Your support is absolutely brilliant, and I thank you very much. If anyone wants to join them, click the join button by the sub button and you can support the channel while getting some extra perks. Other than that, thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate it very much, and I will see you all in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye.